Yeah, we don't. He could have a little bit of sidewall damage there to the car that could be affecting his aerodynamics just a little bit. But here comes Doug thinking about a move to the outside, going down into the chicane. He's going to have to be very brave to do it and pulls it off. Oh, you can't get a whole lot closer than that. My goodness gracious.
Let's take a look at this from the hood, because this is where Partridge needs to change his pants, and Kinchler probably does too after he saw what happened in his mirrors. But Partridge comes in too hot, clips that inside curve, gets unsettled, then he's on the brakes. We're going to go in slow-mo here to see how close it was, and it was very close.
Yeah, the top three have been an incredible fight. Oh man.
Gently does it, boys, as they make their way down. They bang wheels. Oh, Sebastian Tixier, he goes tumbling over. Trengarade going off the circuit. Goodness gracious. Looked like Jim Shedlick went off the track in sympathy there.
This is the view that he has going through. He sees a couple lights in the distance, trying to get it rejoined.
Oh, that's not good. Careful, boys, careful. Too wide coming up, Eau Rouge. And the loser there is going to be Vaughn as Karthik Pai keeps his foot in it. Vaughn going to lose another position there to Mika Lino. And Lino going to go for a 2-for-1 as they come down the Kemmel Straight. He has got such massive overspeed. Look at that move from the number 5 machine.
After a win last week in France here in the 79s and a win in Japan yesterday in Camel, Andy T is looking to be carrying top form still. However, Quartaniemi has become a serious force to be reckoned with. But speaking of powerful forces that ought to be respected, today we arrive at the mountain. Undoubtedly one of the most intimidating tracks on the globe, it will surely separate the wheat from the chaff as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Ossian Puhaka. Behind the scenes is our director, Ryan Bauer, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. If you've never seen Bathurst, you're in for quite the awakening. Let's head to our track guide to give a quick rundown of this awe-inspiring circuit. Welcome to Mount Panorama Circuit. Most drivers simply refer to this place as Bathurst, with it being located just to the southwest of the city's major hub. But most ominously, and perhaps appropriately, it's been nicknamed the Mountain. With more than 500 feet of elevation change over the course of a lap, it's easy to understand why. Though originally built for racing, it's become a street circuit over time, with the track itself used for regular traffic and featuring residential housing all along the roads. This makes this 4-mile, 23-turn course incredibly unique in the world of racing. In the past, the track has hosted a variety of types of cars, including open-wheelers. But modern safety standards means that most competitive racing has now been limited to sports cars and touring cars. However, the dangers are very real due to the incredibly high speeds and lack of runoff throughout much of the circuit. The quickest parts are the run up the mountain straight towards Griffin's Bend, and then the flat-out blast back down the Conrad Straight and into the chase. This chicane was added in the late 80s to break up the run down to Murray's Corner. But while most chicanes are derided for ruining the character of a track, the terrifying speed as you approach it and the general difficulty make it fit right in with Bathurst challenges. However, the toughest portions are undoubtedly along the mountain itself, with notorious corners like the Cutting, Brock Skyline, the Dipper, and Forest Elbow. In fact, one of the more unique worries of this course is that all of these parts are so narrow that track blockages due to wrecks are not uncommon in the first few laps. The Australian fans often line the fences and hillsides to witness the daredevil spectacle of drivers trying to claim King of the Mountain. You can't blame them with how rare of a sight a track like Bathurst is today. Well, Ozzy, this is going to be one that is going to test the drivers, no doubt. And I have a feeling attrition might rear its ugly head today.
That could be the case, Joe, and not just because in Finland, where most of these drivers are from, let's face it, it is 30 degrees Celsius out here today. That is 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So it is hot, and it is traditionally hot in Australia as well. As for the Mount Panorama circuit with the Lotus 79, it is hot action. You're going sideways a lot, and you have to deal with a lot of fast corners as well. You look at the famous ones like the Skyline, the Dipper, you come down the Forest Elbow, you're reaching 290 kilometers per hour. So there's a lot of speed, and one of the trickiest things here is that because of those long straights, you got the Mountain Straight and you got the Conrad Straight, you're running really low downforce, so you don't have the grip in the corners. And when you don't have the grip in the corners, you get slidey action, hence hot.
Absolutely, and let's hope that the drivers don't slide around too much around here, because there's not much room before you get to the walls themselves. As for our points, that's currently with Andy T at the top, of course, having won last week, and Topi Korteniemi following him home. Alex Millward in there. Don't forget about Alex. He's returned and looked very, very quick. That said, he is here today to try and see if he can challenge Andy once again. It's basically the same finishing order as you saw, with T taking maximum points. There is 60 at the top. Kayla, Honorado, Sanchez, Karthik Pai in the top 10 right now. We'll see how he fares. But surprisingly, Gernot Frische only 10th back at Le Mans, having a bit of a struggle back in France. What about the teams championship here today, Ozzy?
Well, you got Brabanter in the lead, just 2 points ahead of Ligier. And then it's Lotus, the team Essex Lotus, in the final podium position. Then you got Williams, Ford, Arrows 5th, Renault 6th, and Ferrari 7th. So just about 7 teams that got points last week. Those are the 7 teams that are also featured in the standings. But let's remember, as you said, Joe, it's still very, very early days in the season. Just 1 round gone, 11 left.
And today's race itself won't be too many laps, 23 of them out there today. It's an open setup series, and that's going to be interesting to see who goes where, because we've seen drivers really be able to trim out here before and make themselves a rocket ship on these long straights. They also don't have a spare car, and as I said, damage is likely for a number of people today, so we might see a few days end early. They have drive-through penalties at 17 incidents, not expecting many to try and hit that, let alone the 25 that's going to disqualify them. There are some places where you can be a little bit off track and get away with it, but not many. Looks like we're still waiting for the first of them to set lap times here. And as we watch them come to the line, I just see a few of them now crossing, including guys like Timothy Reed. Here is Andy T, though, who is heading down Conrad up towards the chase. And this is going to be a very popular place to pass here into this corner.
It is a very popular one, and Andy T now, we'll see him on the first timed lap as Alex Millward takes the provisional pole. T, no, that's not how you want to do it. A little bit too wide on the exit of the chase, and he caught that curb, and that's what it's gonna do. It's gonna send you right around. So Andy T, he's gonna have to try again, and he is really, really short in terms of time. Actually, I'm looking at the time. He might not make it.
I think I'm seeing 3 minutes left, and they're doing a minute 50 around here. I think he can get around in time. The good news is he didn't hit the wall, so he just carried on. So no damage, hopefully. As Gernot is now across the line, and he heads up into third. Interesting. So he seems to like this track a little bit better than some of the other ones he's been at lately as we head over to Trangrade. But Kortiniemi has capitalized on Andy T's opening mistake and put himself on the provisional pole, actually a full quarter second ahead of Alex Millward.
Yeah, Kortiniemi had a very good first lap, but some drivers may have set their car up more for the first lap, and some drivers may have set it up more for the second lap. What is interesting to me as we are watching these times show and we are watching these qualifying efforts is that what will the pole sitter do? What will you do if you start in the front row? We talked about setups earlier. You can do it two ways. You can either trim it out for the straights and go hit like 290, as Jukka Tolonen was rumored to do earlier on this week, or you can have a little bit of a higher downforce. And the advantage is that because you have the mountain straight on the first lap, okay, but if you get a good start and then you manage to block the inside line, you can really make yourself maybe 1.5 seconds of a gap in that high downforce demanding mountain sector. And once you get to that long straight, well, they might be able to pass you, but they're not close enough. And usually with a slightly higher downforce, you're faster over the course of a lap. So it's a really interesting choice, one that Andy T must be mulling right about now as he gets this lap hopefully done.
By the way, Xavier Sanchez had a wreck on his first timed lap, and so he is done with qualifying. He'll start from the back. T only starting from third here today, so he'll have some work to do, no doubt. Frisha is coming around to take his second lap as we see Kevin Honorato on our screen. As we mentioned, came in looking great over at Le Mans, and Frisha improved up to fourth with his latest lap. Kevin currently sitting in eighth. Does look like he's going slightly faster out here. Let's see if this is going to be enough. 49.7. He's a 10th quicker. That's going to bump him up at least to 7th.
Yeah, Dylan Freckleton now sitting 13th, and he's going to cut it really tight. Let's see. Might not be able to finish this lap. Oh, it's nip and tuck. It's just about the second in there. I hope for Dylan's case that he can finish this lap because he's looking really good. And since the recent changes to this car, I say recent, it was in 2021, but relatively recent. Oh, and he's been surrounded Skyline. Never mind.
That put pains to that. So the 12 car is done with qualifying. It was looking pretty good there, but in the end, he could not get back around. That's everybody done. So let's go through our starting order of the top split today. Topi Kortiniemi has taken the 2 bonus points for pole. Alex Millward will start behind him as Andy T will be P3. Gernot Frisha coming in ready to fight in 4th as Pep Meyer will be 5th. And then it's Jani Rainen in the 6th position. Kevin Honorato starts P7. You've got Timothy Reed in 8th today. Ove Trangrade only good enough for 9th, strangely. And Josh Germany will start from 10th.
He will indeed show, and in 11th place it is Kartik Pai. Good start of the season. Let's see if he can continue that one. Pepe Fuentes in 12th, Dylan Freckleton 13th, surprisingly low for him. Jack Jones 14th, Jean-Francois Bocou 15th, then it's Daniel Downing, Javier Sanchez, Daniel Galiz, and Miguel Angel Salido Sanchez. And that's an aggressively Spanish name if I've ever seen one.
It is indeed. And I got to think that you might be a bit jealous of the virtual fans today because it's actually colder out in virtual Australia than it is in real Finland right now.
Rub it in.
And look at the wind, though. Holy cow. This is going to be interesting. And I got to check to see if that's going to be a crosswind on the long straights or if that's going to affect them, with a headwind and a tailwind on either side, because that will certainly make things very interesting for them if it is, and could make one of the straights a lot easier to pass. Well, as the rest of them start to grid up, we're waiting on Ryan and Downing and Sanchez. Again, the 4 of Sanchez very much out of position, starting way at the back of the field on the second to last row. And he's going to have to try and fight his way past a lot of cars, or hopefully stay out of trouble as well, as it's easy to find yourself collected in somebody else's mess on the first couple laps around here at Bathurst. It looks like we've got everybody out there, so the engines start to rev as the lights come up and the green flag is out. And Alex Millward is not off the line well as behind him. It looks like Andy T is immediately going to try and take second place away, but he breaks a little bit early, almost making contact. He'll fall back down to third. Coming through Hell Corner, everybody is out clean.
Everybody is, and we'll now see how Arto's cars trimmed out. We'll see the first sides of that here, and Gernot in fourth place is looking to make a move to the inside. I believe it was against Andy T, but couldn't quite pull it off. And first four look to be on equal pace. It is still early goings here, and everybody is clean through turn number 2, Murray's Bend as well. Griffin's Bend, sorry. So we'll have to see how they fare up, but cold tires still, it's going to be a lot of trouble to make it up this hill.
Yeah, very cold tires for Timothy Reed. You saw him squirreling around on the throttle, and he's going to lose a position to Ove Trangrade because of it. And behind him, things are stacking up greatly with no place to try and pass here at the top of the hill.
Indeed. And you look at them right now, Korteniemi, and then you see Millward and you see T, and they are already getting quite close to the ball despite it being the first lap. And it's all about guts here. No guts, no glory. It's all about that confidence and that bravery, and you have to get into the rhythm early on, because top of the track, it's like a street course.
Absolutely, and Topi Korteniemi still leading Alex Millward half a second away. So it looks like Alex isn't close enough to use that slipstream quite yet. He'll have to try and hustle his way over the top of the mountain. In fact, look at this top group. It is a train, but nobody really all that close. It seems like it is much tighter back in the second train that starts with Ove Trangrade back there in 8th.
Indeed, and the second place, that's the second place gone. I think that was Millward just absolutely gone in the last corner. Might have been Andy T. Let's see what happens there. Yeah, that's Millward gone in the last corner, and that was very, very, very difficult for him. Murray's corner claimed Alex Millward already on lap number 1, and we see a replay of it. And sorry, Joe, but let me go through this. In the last corner, you can see him just going way too hot. Did he touch the grass? No, he's not. He just didn't have the grip and went wide, and then hit the wall on the right side, and it claimed him so quickly, and everybody else so lucky that he didn't spin in the middle of the track, but that's a tragic development.
We've got a big wreck, multiple cars coming through Griffin's Bend.
No.
This starts with Sanchez, Miguel Sanchez, I should clarify, in the 13 car. And you can see him trying to limp his way back home, hoping to try and take some repairs, but I'm not sure how well this is going to work. It happens between himself and Jack Johns, and then unfortunately, everybody else just kind of piles in as they're trying to take this high commitment corner so fast. There's so little they can do.
Yeah, I think Sanchez turned in too early there, to be honest. Like, he was squeezing the car on the inside way too much. And that's the thing with Griffin's Bend. It is possible to defend your position around the outside, but you have to take a really tight line, and you have to really use the exit. But you can't turn in that tight, especially not in turn number 2, lap number 2, because the guy on the inside, he's still trying to get into grips with the tires, and it's a difficult corner to really hold it down to the inside anyway, because that curb is high, and when you have a high curb on the inside, you don't really want to take it with these cars, even with the higher ride heights they're running here at Bathurst.
So that means that Jack Johns, Daniel Downing, and Miguel Sanchez are all in pit lane. In fact, I think Downing, he is officially retired out of this race now. But look at the top 3 here. Korteniemi, and something's happened to Trangrade. Looks like Ove Trangrade has spun in Murray's corner, and that is proving to be a difficult one, which doesn't surprise me too much. It's just more in the way that we're losing drivers, because it's almost an exact copy of what we saw with Millward.
Yeah, just lost the back end on the braking. It was a little bit loose already. It didn't look like he locked it up as much as just, braked a little bit too early, lost the rear under braking, lost the grip, and then just couldn't save it anymore. Easier to just spin it around rather than trying to overcorrect it and send it to the wall. As we are on board with Pep Meyer, who is sitting in 4th place, and that is quite impressive.
Yeah, up 1 position. In fact, the top 7, barring Korteniemi, have all gained 1 spot because of the spin from Alex Millward. Otherwise, they are all basically as they began this race. Love this onboard coming over the top of the mountain, and as they plunge down now, you can see how much commitment is needed by these drivers, and Pep Meyer has plenty of it.
He got a front row seat and he's in the best driving school in the world. I used to say when I was actively competing that the best driving school that you can have for Lotus 79, well, that's about 6 or 7 tenths of a second behind Gernot Fritsche, the Austrian Superman. The Red Baron, really, who is sitting on the final podium position right now. He's been on the podium here 3 times in Sunday Grand Prix, and that's just in Global SimRacing Channel history. That's going back to 2017. He's the only driver on this grid who has actually won a Sunday Grand Prix here before. So he has the experience, and he's got the racecraft, and if Pep Meyer can hold on to the draft of the Austrian, or even better, if he can challenge him, he's gonna learn a lot, because there's so many subtle things that you learn driving behind Gernot. Even if he is not quite the Gernot that he used to be, he's not quite in that dominating form, it is still a great driving school, because that Austrian man, he makes no mistakes, and he is a very, very difficult man to pass.
Don't need to go to it, but Daniel Gallus in the 11 spun in the Dipper, and unfortunately for Alex Millward, he was the next car to come around the corner and didn't see him in time. The two connected, both cars are now out of this race. Jean-François Boscus is also out of this race, and looks like they are dropping like flies now, but the front of the field has remained survivors for the time being. Still a lot of laps to go, so this could be a case of who keeps it on the black stuff.
Absolutely, and you look at the gaps already. Topi Korteniemi is on an absolute flyer. We're on lap number 4. The gap between him and Gernot in P number 3 is 4 seconds. That is incredible. That is over 1 second per lap that Topi is doing right now, and he is absolutely flying away. Andy T behind him, his teammate. Andy, we know how much he loves winning. Everybody does, but Andy is a really competitive guy. But Andy is losing time each and every lap, and I wonder what Andy is thinking right now as he's piling into this race car at almost 180 miles an hour down this hill towards the sun and break into the corner. I think what he must consider is that don't do an Alex Millward, basically. Don't throw your race by trying too hard. It's a precarious balance, but he has to find a little bit more from somewhere.
Yeah, he's competing against his teammate too. A big slide here from Freckleton, who's in a great battle with Pepe Fuentes. Pepe is going to try and go around the outside coming into Murray's, but we've seen a lot of issues here already. These two are going to take it successful. Little tire spin coming out of Freckleton, though.
Yeah, and here we have Fuentes moving to the inside at the Hell Corner. Turn number 1, it is named Hell Corner, couldn't quite pull it off. And in fact, he is gonna allow Freckleton to get that better exit onto the mountain straight. And look who's behind them. That is the familiar Honda livery of Uwe Trengerade, and he's pulling Javier Sanchez behind him. So despite the positions being quite lowly, in fact they are the last cars running in this race in the leading lap. It is still some pretty good drivers up there and some hungry drivers too. And I think Uwe and Javier are both wanting these two, Fuentes and Freckleton, to keep fighting so they can catch up to them and they can join it.
Yeah, both of them out of position here and eager to try and make them up for different reasons, though. But one thing that I was finding interesting is wondering whether or not these early stages might see things change around as the race progresses. Because we talked about the open setup, and we've seen in the past, Ozzy, that sometimes the cars can be better at the start or the end of the race. Is that some hope for Andy T potentially?
Absolutely, and Andy looks like he has a trimmed out race car hitting 290, 180 miles an hour, 290 k's an hour, and he's catching a couple of tenths each and every lap on Topi on those straight lines. So Topi is losing a bit of time, bit of ground on the straight line, and that's not the draft. You don't get the draft from over a second away with the Lotus 79. You have to be within 6 tenths of a second. That used to be the magic marker, and it still is. So look at here, look at the gap Andy T has. It's 1.2 seconds, and once they come on top of the mountain straight, I'm betting it's 1.1, because it's starting to turn here. Andy T is starting to catch him up, he's starting to reel him in, and there it starts to change. So he has a little bit less downforce potentially, and it's showing itself especially on the downhill. Not so much on the uphill, but on the downhill very much so.
We got to go back to Fuentes because he and Freckleton were side by side down the front stretch. They're going to be side by side yet again coming up into Griffin's Bend as we're watching the 10 car. Here we are side by side, and it looks like Freckleton will win out that outside line. Usually not the place to be in the right-hander, but now look who's joined them. It is Ove Tranqueray and Xavier Sanchez that are in the party.
They are, and I wonder how trimmed out Uwe's car is, because, you know, Joe, the Norwegian usually has a very good top speed. And if so, he's gonna be just licking his chops here on the uphill, holding very tight, and once they exit Forest's elbow, go down the Connaught Straight, it is time for the man to feast.
So let's see if he manages it out of Forest elbow, getting close here. It seems that Fuentes is once again threatening on Freckleton, but Freckleton breaks deep. He smokes the inside tires just barely and gets a decent exit. But look at how close they all are. This is certainly going to see some passing attempted, if not executed. And Pepe off to the right-hand side. It's going to be the inside of the key. No, he ducks back in. Doesn't feel confident maybe about his straight line speed. Ove Tranqueray also not able to get up beside the pair of them. Now they go wheel to wheel into the chase round the outside, and Pepe's not taking no for an answer. Almost looks like Uwe is able to get involved, but backs out of it. Now Sanchez as well is going to try and see if the domino effect can help him as he gets the inside into Murray's corner, and it's a drag race down the main straight to Hell Corner.
Too deep, too wide at Bathurst. Oh yeah, with the Lotus 79. And you look at Uwe and you look at Javier Sanchez. We know him as Heikki also from his streaming, but he is a Spanish man. Even if he put that nickname from Heikki Kovalainen, the Formula 1 driver, he is still looking very, very racy indeed, right behind Uwe. Now, what I was surprised about is that Uwe wasn't actually able to capitalize on that downhill, on the Conrad Straight, and he doesn't look like he has much damage either. So he doesn't have the top speed he usually has, and I was really surprised by that. The man, however, who might have that top speed, well, they are both here in front of this queue, Pepe Fuentes and Dylan Freckleton. Especially Fuentes. He looked very, very racy as they went down that hill.
Yeah, although it was weird how he started to pop out and then he went back into the slipstream. So not sure if he wanted to try and wait to outbreak him instead of giving an opportunity to be repassed or what, but he is definitely stretching away right now over the top of the mountain. Car looks mighty quick. Now, will Ove get a chance to try and attack on Freckleton here as he gets very close to the outside wall of Forest Elbow?
Yeah, I had it the wrong way around. It's actually Freckleton who had the fast car last time around. I was watching him leading the pack and they weren't really catching up to him. I think the problem for Fuentes last time around was that he got close enough in the draft, but once he moved out, he hit that wall of air and he could no longer match the speed of that Freckleton car. However, Freckleton this time around, going very wide, and that's the wall! Oh, that's a hard lick for Freckleton, and that's all she wrote. Good night.
Yeah, let's watch it from on board Ove Tranqueray, who is probably very grateful that the car did not bounce back in front of him. But it's that curb. Look at that. As soon as he straddled it, like you said, good night. And that's the same curb that caught out Xavier Sanchez and Andy T in the qualifying.
Yeah, I did. And you know, that curb it's really devious because you kind of want to use it. You see it on all the videos. If you go watch the Lap of Gods from V8 Supercars here at Mount Panorama, or if you go watch any other hot lap around here, really, you see that they are using those curbs. But that curb is surprisingly high, and what happened there is that what we've seen countless of times before with these cars, the car bottoms out over the curb. It doesn't hit it with just the tire, the floorboard actually slides over the curb and your outside tires are no longer in contact with the track. And what happens there is what we call Tony Gardner's pro skateboarding. Is that you go skateboarding, you have no more grip, and then you're just basically a passenger. And one other place where that happens really easily is Deckner 2 at Suzuka. So Deckner 2 and exit of the chase here at Bathurst, those are the most common places. Quick shout out, however, to the quick left-hander before Skyline. That's the one I'm surprised we haven't featured yet.
Yeah, that is another one that certainly causes big accidents, but I think everybody's trying to respect that one here today. Sanchez looking for some respect out of Trangarade and Fuentes in front of him, but he's not close enough this time. Pretty good exit out of Ove, but that looks like a slight defense just drifting over late there from Pepe, trying to dissuade the Norwegian from trying to make an attack, but he's going to have to do an even bigger dissuasion down the front stretch. No, big lift there from Trangrade, maybe waiting for the mountain straight, and yes, it's a decent exit. He's going to get the slipstream.
He is gonna get it. Let's see what happens here. Trangarade is right behind Fuentes. Fuentes doing a good job of holding down that inside line. And Sanchez is having to, Uwe is having to move to the outside, but he's able to still pull it off with the later braking and just about able to hold it on the right side of the white line, and that's a nice move. You can do it around the outside, however, you have to be very brave on the braking. And Fuentes, maybe a mental note for him, brake later next time. It looked like he had the opportunity, he had the room to brake later, but he was maybe erring on the side of caution this time around. But I hope they can still battle. I hope this battle keeps going well onto the latter portion of this race.
Well, the drivers now are missing 6 of their rivals, as we've lost Freckleton, Millward, Boscus, Gallus, Downing, and Miguel Sanchez. Jack Johns actually got the car repaired and is back out on track in that number 6, but he is a lap down, probably just hoping to continue to pick up spots. He actually has picked up a number of them just due to other retirements. We're following right now on your screen the battle for 10th, Trangrade having recently taken it away from Pepe Fuentes, and then Xavier Sanchez, who failed to get a qualifying time in, has been trying to make some overtakes, but other than getting by cars who have wrecked out, I'm a bit surprised to see Sanchez having such a hard time get up the field.
Yeah, it's not easy to pass here if you don't have the highest top speed, because you only really have 2 opportunities. You have that one opportunity going up the hill, and you have the other opportunity going down the hill. And it's not very easy to follow another car on that mountain section either. So we see once again here he has a great opportunity. He is following very close to Fuentes and moving to the inside line. This time Fuentes lets him have it, and that's a very easy pass. I wonder if Fuentes actually lifted just a little bit, letting Javier pass him, and that's a clever move if so, because that means that now Sanchez can once again get to chasing Uwe. They were having very similar speed earlier on. So I wonder if this is a bet by Fuentes to, okay, let's see if Sanchez can catch up to him, and if so, we can continue our battle. Because, I mean, he's in 12th place anyway. He's car number 10, he's pretty new to this series. So it's not like he has too much to lose here, but he has a lot to gain. This position is already good, but he can get into the top 10 if these guys start battling and maybe something happens.
Exactly. Risk versus reward as well, you got to think. If he's got Sanchez breathing down his neck the whole time, that's going to just up the pressure. Might as well let him go, run his own race, and let the mountain do its thing and choose who wants to finish. But as they come out of Forest Elbow, you can see just a little bit slower off the corner for the Renault liveried Lotus of that number 10, losing time to Sanchez. Topi Cortiniemi still our leader. However, up at the top of the screen, Andy T just set the fastest lap of the race. But notice that he's a little farther back than what we saw earlier. You mentioned it was 1.2 seconds. It's up to 1.6 right now, so he's not been gaining like he was before.
Yeah, Topi's doing a very good job of managing that gap. It was Jackie Stewart who famously said how he's winning races. You have to be aggressive on the first lap. You can spend the second and the third lap just watching the situation, you know, looking at how the other drivers are doing, but then you have to be fast once again and keep the chasing driver always within a long leash. Like, never let them get that confidence. Never let them get that idea that they can catch up to you. And Topi is doing a great job of that. You can see Andy putting in the fastest lap every now and then, but he's not able to make it consistent, because once Topi sees that, okay, Andy is getting a little bit faster, he ups the tempo himself, and he keeps him that 1.6, 1.7 seconds away. He's never ever allowing Andy to get within the firing range. Now, You know, Joe, I do fancy myself as a bit of a coach. And I think, at times at least, I like to think I'm able to coach a little bit, and especially on the motivational side. So let's do a bit of a pep talk. Because we were talking about the number 19 earlier, Pep Meyer, sitting in the 4th place, how he was holding on to the back of Gernot Fritschen. Well, he's no longer able to hold on to the back, but he's still able to be a little bit faster than Jani Ryhänen behind him. So that 4th place is certainly, if he's able to keep it right until the end, that is going to turn some heads, and that is a driver who is very, very much ending up on my short list of people who I have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been great seeing him apply his trade out here as we've now passed the halfway mark of this race. And boy, has the field thinned from our 19 starters. You can see everybody spreading out, perhaps, as I said earlier, focusing on their own race just to try to get to the finish. Pep heading through Griffin's Bend, not quite up on the inside curb though. Maybe just a little bit too deep into the corner as he tries to find some speed. Instead, we're going to come back to Sanchez. Fuentes. Well, that is Sanchez in front of us, though. And I think you might be right here, as Pepe has been following him and has not dropped off. So maybe he feels like Xavier will have a better chance at trying to get up to Trangrate and attack. But so far, the 4 is still about a second behind on the Norwegian. So as we look over the top of his helmet, coming up through the cutting, let's watch and see who's quicker here coming across the twisty bits of this circuit.
Yeah, we can see it here running on board, and very nice lines already from Fuentes. Like, he's not really making any mistakes. He's using the track pretty well. He's getting right to the edge. He could be a little bit more aggressive down the skyline here, and in the dipper I feel like he's dropping a bit of time here. You can get a bit more to the inside there. So he's not using all of the track available, but he has very solid lines and very solid foundations. Now I wonder about that racecraft. You mentioned we're on top of his helmet, as we still are. That is Fernando Alonso's helmet. You can see it right away, the number 14, the Kimoa sponsorship, that is Alonso's helmet. So maybe he brought a bit of a racecraft from the 2-time world champion too.
Absolutely, very clever driver, and that's why it says 14, even though his car officially within the sim is a number 10 on there, so if you got confused by that one. And I guess it's appropriate then, too, that Pepe is driving a Renault.
Yeah, but he doesn't have a teammate who can crash into the wall for him.
We're not going there as we come down into hell.
No, we're not.
Come down into hell quarter to start lap 13 now, and the gap now up to 1.4 seconds. Yeah, if Pepe's got more in him, I almost wonder if he needs to try and attack on the 4 and get that spot back, because it looks like they're not really gaining on Ove Trangrade at this stage.
But here's the thing, Joe. Can we get a lap time comparison between Uwe and the number 7, Josh Germany? Because I wonder if this is a longer con than we realize. You look at the gap between Josh and Uwe, and it is only 1.5 seconds. So I'm sorry to our director, by the way. Sorry, Ryan. That is a very, very quick request. And here we go. We get it right away. And you can see it that Uwe is a lot faster. And in fact, Germany has done a mistake on lap 11 that has cost him 7 seconds. So now the gap is only 1.5 seconds. And that is something that they can definitely work with. That is something that Uwe can work with. That is something that can lead into a battle. And in turn, a battle can pull the 2 Spaniards right back into the mix.
Yeah, that happened on the way out of Forest Elbow for Josh. He found himself almost spinning to the inside wall, but thankfully keeping from actually hitting anything. So he was able to carry on without any sort of damage as Andy T gets another fastest lap of the race. But one fastest lap here and another there is not going to do him any good. He needs to be consistently quicker than that number 3 to chase him down. And there we come back to the battle between Xavier Sanchez and Pepe Fuentes, still caught behind the 14 of Ove Trangrade. And actually it went down. And did Obe have a mistake coming through Murray's corner because it was at 1.7? Yeah, it looks like Trangerade went a little deep into that last turn, and that gave up about half a second.
Yeah, and that's been a source of many mistakes today. I'm really surprised. I mean, your tires can get a little bit cold running that long downhill straight. What people don't often realize is that running on a straight line actually makes the tires a little bit colder when you're not turning, at least the surface. So it can surprise people. You have the chase, which is a fast chicane, and then you really think of the last corner just as a normal 90-degree corner, head into the main straight, which doesn't matter because it's so short. Then you're already thinking about the first corner, you're already thinking about the mountain, how you tackle it on once again. Your mind can doze off on that Conrad straight as we are running on board with Andy T. And you can easily make simple mistakes, but the other thing is that that last corner is not really that simple. You don't really have a solid braking marker, and this is a great view as we are watching Andy T coming in there. You don't really have a solid braking markers. That's not what you have on the right side. You have a couple of telephone poles, and that's about it. So it's very easy to get it wrong and make yourself look a little bit silly, and many drivers have done it. We always talk about the mountain, we always talk about the skyline, we talk about Griffin's Bend, the cutting, all of the difficult places here. But we don't talk about Murray's Corner, which is really the source of many a mistake.
Yeah, and usually for me, it's that inside curve that catches me out on that one. It's kind of surprised we haven't seen anybody clobber that and have a problem. But we've been watching the battle for first here with T and Cortiniemi. Now, this has struck me is interesting as well, because I mentioned there's 2 bonus points for the pole that Topi has already claimed, but there's also 2 bonus points for fastest lap. And Andy T has been repeatedly snatching that time after time. I wonder if that's intentional from him.
I mean, what is the point of race car driving? You're trying to go as fast as possible. I mean, yes, you want to take the fastest lap, but I think it's more of a competitive thing than a strategy thing, really. The 2 points, you get 60 points for a win. That's 10 more than second place gets. 2 points and 2 points, well, you get 56 for a win. You get 2 for pole, you get 2 for the fastest lap. So that's not really such a big thing in the grand scheme of things. I think it's more about asserting dominance. It's more about, showing that you are the fastest driver out there on the track. These laps, by the way, they won't be the fastest lap of the race. These cars will still get faster, and the fastest lap traditionally has been the last lap, and unless we get a fight, it might be the last lap this time around too. But it is a good point to bring up, and he has been putting the fastest laps on this time around. He hasn't been able to do it consistently enough, but he is once again just a little bit closer, and I wonder if Topi can yank that leash once again, or rather stretch that leash, and he can on 1:49.6, so that's a response from Topi, and 1.3 seconds still is the gap. And here we get the lap time comparison as well, and look at that show. Wow.
I mean, there's one in there that is more than a 10th difference between them. That is incredible consistency. I mentioned that they're teammates on Raccoon Racing, so I have no doubt that there's some sort of setup sharing and information sharing. The question is how much information and whether or not Andy T can use that to his advantage to try and reel in Topi Cortiniemi, who this season definitely seems to be one of the main rivals as it's shaping up early on to try and challenge Andy, depending on whether or not Andy is going to be here for much of the season. Of course, he tends to kind of flit in and out as he pleases on the tracks that interest him. He did spend the one season, a couple seasons ago, trying to make a concerted effort for the championship. But even then, Ozzy, as soon as he won the championship, he basically took off and said, "I don't like the remaining tracks, I'm out."
Yeah, he pulled a Nico Rosberg, basically. I've seen quite a few people do that, actually. Coming here, win the championship and getting out, because it takes a lot of effort. And it really, like, for Andy, for example, if you don't like the tracks, why do you have to run them if you don't like them and you already have the championship? Of course, you could, take another victory, but you can also take a bit of a break. And it's actually really good for your mental health, because the 1 week between the seasons is not really a long gap at all. It goes by in a hurry. It goes by in the blink of an eye. So really, if you have the chance to regather your mental energy with everything else that's going on in your life as well, and then come into the new season as a fresh driver, then by all means do it. Andy T, meanwhile, answered to Topi with a 49.5, taking that fastest lap to him once again, and it's 1.1.
Unfortunately, I'm an American, so I don't know what this break you speak of is. But as we come up the mountain straight, Andy T is trying his darndest to catch up. But our director has noticed something that I hadn't. If you look on the driver's right, the wing has the tiniest bit of damage. Now, I don't think that's really affecting him on most of the lap. But I wonder if down the straight, that's costing him a kilometer per hour or two.
It could be, and you pick up wing damage really easily around here. You take one curb a little bit too aggressively. You have a lot of bumps as well, a lot of elevation changes. You can see it there as they come towards the skyline. They are really using those curbs on the inside, and you can pick up a bit of damage. It's not going to affect him too much. It's maybe a 10th or 2 at most per lap, but it has a bit of a mental effect as well, if your car is not clocking quite as fast as it normally does. Now, back in the day, at least, I think they still do it, where ride height, because it's really important in this car, you can set the car in 2 ways. You can either set the ride height so high and the suspension so stiff that you never really bottom out, which was the conventional way to go. It gives you a little bit more top speed, and it protects you against the floor damage, against the wing damage, unless you take a stupid curb hit all by yourself or hit somebody else. Or what you can also do alternatively is that you set the car on a little bit of a faster ride height and just basically be prepared for the fact that you damage your car. So you're running a car that is so low that it's gonna damage itself, but it doesn't matter because the benefits outweigh the costs.
Absolutely. And another fastest lap there for Andy T. Down to 0.6 of a second. He's starting to reel him in. And we're down to 6 laps to go. Remember I talked about earlier, sometimes the cars will have slightly different handling, slightly different speed from the beginning to the end of the race, depending on how you set it up. Freisha behind him in 3rd was kind of notorious for that, where he wouldn't be all that quick at the start of races, but by the end, you just could not catch the man. And that's what gave him so many wins. In fact, he is still our all-time win leader in this series at 144 currently. So he's obviously not added to many of those recently. In fact, last season, I think, was a winless one for him, and we'll see if he can change that around today. Certainly not looking like at this stage that he's going to change that, but that'll depend on what this battle looks like, because look at this. It is down to 0.5 of a second now. You talked about earlier with Fuentes just wanting Sanchez to catch up to train grade. Oh, Gernot surely wants Andy to try and start fighting with Topi here.
Oh, absolutely. So knowing Gernot, he's kind of satisfied just sitting in the podium. He doesn't really like gifted wins. What that man appreciates above everything else is a fair, good fight. He wants to be challenged too. I think he's being quite lonely at the top, so he's secretly must be smiling inside that there's somebody who can finally kick his butt, so to speak. And here goes Andy to the outside. Oh, that's a surprise. Hello.
Surely that wasn't anything coordinated, but around the outside of the chase, how in the world? I've never seen Topi give something up like that. I have to imagine he was trying to actually fight that there, but I cannot believe that Andy managed to make that work.
Yeah, and so far away, I think Topi was caught out a little bit there, you know, just going to the inside. Then he realized that Andy was on the outside already. He had to brake a little bit more, and he couldn't really use the outside. And at that point, you know, Andy had the inside line of the next corner, and that was his position to take. So great move by Andy. He caught Topi with his pants down, really, I must say, like really surprised the guy. Now I'm curious to see how will Topi Korteniemi respond. He's led this race for the first 18 laps. He had the pole position. He has an opportunity to take the fastest lap here, of course, being in the toe of Andy T, but I don't think he's going for that. I think he's right now trying to see, okay, what is Andy doing differently from me? Because the mental effect is that Andy was suddenly able to catch back up to him. And not only that, but Topi's been struggling just a little bit. And now on the mountain section, Andy's been running away. The gap is 0.7 of a second, and that's not easy to catch up, especially not if you continue to screw up the exit of Forest Elbow like that.
Speaking of struggling, if you're wondering where one of our usual top competitors is, Michael de Turk, after he had such a great weekend last week, at least in the races other than the 79s, looks like he is not a fan of Bathurst, and he has elected to use this one as one of his drop weeks. But he is kind of talking to us behind the scenes, giving some information. So a big thank you to Michael, keeping an eye out for us while he's not in the car. In the meantime, though, this is going to be a bit of a rough start as he didn't score any points back at Le Mans either, unfortunately. But now, look at Andy T. Within a single lap, he has stretched it out to 0.7 of a second, set the fastest lap. It's now down to 4 laps to go after things did not look like they were shaping up for him early on. Andy T., who remained calm this entire race, has grabbed this by the scruff of the neck, and he's got assured control of this race now.
Yeah, and I just wonder if Topi has anything left in the tank to give Andy T some early grace here, because this is really shaping up to be an Andy T masterpiece. He was nowhere for the first 15 laps or so, and just holding on within a sort of, not even in a striking distance, that's just in a measuring distance more like, and then he pounced. I wonder if Topi ran out of tire, but Topi looks to be in a bit of a better shape this time around. He was catching up on the uphill, and then let's see here, coming to the deeper. Yep, he's definitely close enough. He's the same distance as last time around, maybe just half a tenth further back. And as they run down the hill, yeah, it's 8.5 tenths. That's a bit too much. He's able to catch him once again here on the straights. He's got a little bit of a better top speed, but that's not gonna be enough, not unless Andy makes a mistake here. So I do wonder, Joe, do we have a battle here or do we not? For the sake of this race, I hope we do, but then again, it's been a very peculiar race that I think is gonna also set the pace for the season.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a lot more representative than what we saw at Le Mans, as big slide coming out of Murray's corner for Andy T. He's still pushing. But even still, not quite like your typical tracks. Obviously, it's extremely punishing being a street course, and as we said, we've lost a lot of them. Next time out, probably going to be a lot more like the usual fare that you see here in the 79s, because it'll be Brands Hatch for that race. So keep your eyes peeled to see if we get even yet another change in it. But these first 2 races are looking a little bit similar at the end, because it was T ahead of Courtney back in France, and that's exactly how they sit with 3 laps to go today in Australia.
They do, and we are now on board with Uwe Trengeride, who has caught up to Josh Germany, and I am so happy. Nothing against Mr. Germany, not at all. I love the country, and I think he's a good driver too, but I'm just so happy that the call I made like 10-15 laps ago has finally come to fruition.
And apologies, it was not Le Mans last week. It was at the Red Bull Ring, which is still definitely a draft track. But not quite to the same degree. So I guess it was more representative. I've gotten so mixed up because we had 2 races at Le Mans last week, and this was the only vintage series that did not. Meanwhile, Ove Trangerate, right now up behind Josh Germany, has got only 3 laps to try and get by. And it's one thing to catch, it's another to pass.
It absolutely is. So I wonder how Uwe is going to pull this off. I wonder what the difference in straight line speed is between those guys too, because it's all fine and dandy if you're faster on the uphill section, the mountain section, and you can follow this close. It's a completely another factor if you can't just pass them even in the draft. That's a nightmare. I've been in a situation many times before on tracks like this where I'm faster than the guy ahead of me. I'm able to catch them in all of the fast corners, and then once the straight line opens, it's wow, and they're just gone, and I can just wave them goodbye and see them next lap, and it goes on and on and on, and it can really eat a man from the inside. So here Uwe is, and he's catching, but he's not catching enough.
No, it's looking like he's going to give it a go, though. He wants to try it down to the inside, but late on the brakes, Germany will deny Trangerate. Yeah, you mentioned Tolinen at the top of the broadcast, kind of known for having a straight line speed. There was one season we came here in the 79s, and a driver behind him was trying to catch Tolinen. He was within 2 to 3 tenths behind him coming out of Forest Elbow, and still couldn't catch him on the Conrad Straight.
that can happen. And it's a downhill straight too, so draft is very important, of course, but it's a downhill straight, so it's not quite as strong as it would be running up the hill or just running in level playing field, because the cars, of course, you know how gravity works, so the car will get a little bit of help from gravity as well, in addition to the around 500 horsepower that these Cossi V8 engines produce. Beautiful, beautiful 3-liter engines, by the way, make a nice noise, as I'm sure you've been hearing all evening long. Or morning long, depending on where in the world you are. Good point from Natasha in the chat, by the way. Look at the gap between the second and third place driver. Topi Korteniemi and Gernot Fletcher. 12 seconds. They're just, I mean, Andy has run away from Topi, all right, but the two of them had just run away from everybody else. They were just, you know, giving no chance.
Absolutely. It seems like they have been the men to beat here today. But right now, Trangrade's still going to try and beat Germany. And while, whoop, there goes gravity for Germany. Let's see if it is not enough to overcome the slipstream. It's about 2 to 3 tenths behind right now. This is much closer. I think the Norwegian's got a very good shot at it. He's certainly going to have the momentum as it tucks him in underneath the rear wing, but there's a big defense from Josh down to the inside of the chase. And unlike what we saw with Tian Korteniemi, Trangrade cannot repeat the feat.
No, he can't, but he's still looking to the last corner, and he was kind of faking it, you know, maybe trying to see if Josh bites. Throwing a bait out there, trying to see if Josh bites into the last corner, maybe getting a better exit, but nothing doing there, as they have started the last lap, as have our leaders, by the way, too. So Josh and Uwe 45 seconds behind them. That's a great exit from Uwe, by the way. And look at Joshua Germany. Right as he exited Hell Corner, he moved to the left-hand side of the track, trying to avoid the biggest of the bumps, and just the way that car wiggles on the straight is mesmerizing.
And I noticed him wiggling under braking into Hell Corner. I wonder if that's what helped Uwe try and catch up. We are on the final lap of the race, so if Uwe is going to try and make a pass, he's got to do it soon. And look how far ahead they are after they just finished the Mountain Straight. Andy T's already on Conrad. Topi Korteniemi 2.1 seconds behind. It took till the end of the race for T to really come alive, but when he did, he made it look easy. And as he comes into Murray's Corner, a win in the opener back in Austria, and now a win in Australia for Andy T as he crosses the line at Bathurst.
He has, and that's an excellent result for him, an excellent result for Raccoon Racing as well. Fastest lap on the last lap as well. That's great. I like that they're holding on to the traditions. Oh, Joe, here we go.
And he's going to be side by side. This is Karthik Pai and Kevin Honorado. Honorado trying to break deep. He has the inside, but they carry on. Oh, no, and they're going to tangle. Off course goes Pai, and they're going to tangle. As upside down goes Kevin Honorado, and that is his race over, inches from the line. Karthik Pai is going to be able to carry on. Unfortunately, contentious circumstances. We got more battling as well. Oh, no! And once again, for the second time in the same lap, we have cars coming together out of the chase, and again, it goes to the driver on the outside as Ove Trangrade is going to be able to creep to the line, but this time it looks like Sanchez is going to follow home, but Honorado and I believe our other driver are unfortunately not able to get in to the finish of this race. Wow, dramatic stuff there at the very end after things looked calm for quite some time. We'll come back after a quick break and try to untangle this mess as we get the official results as well as driver interviews.
Yeah, we don't. He could have a little bit of sidewall damage there to the car that could be affecting his aerodynamics just a little bit. But here comes Doug thinking about a move to the outside, going down into the chicane. He's going to have to be very brave to do it, and pulls it off. Oh, you can't get a whole lot closer than that. My goodness gracious.
Let's take a look at this from the hood, because this is where Partridge needs to change his pants, and Kinchler probably does too after he saw what happened in his mirrors. But Partridge comes in too hot, clips that inside curve, gets unsettled, then he's on the brakes. We're going to go in slow-mo here to see how close it was, and it was very close.
Yeah, the top three have been an incredible fight. Oh man.
Gently does it, boys, as they make their way down. They bang wheels. Oh, Sebastian Tixier, he goes tumbling over. Trengarade going off the circuit. Goodness gracious, looked like Jim Shedlick went off the track in sympathy there.
This is the view that he has going through. He sees a couple lights in the distance, trying to get it rejoined.
Oh, that's not good. Careful, boys, careful. Too wide coming up, Eau Rouge. And the loser there is going to be Vaughn as Karthik Pai keeps his foot in it. Vaughn going to lose another position there to Mika Lino. And Lino going to go for a 2-for-1 as they come down the Camel Straight. He has got such massive overspeed. Look at that move from the number 5 machine.
Welcome back to Bathurst as we watched round 2 in the Sunday Grand Prix series. And while Andy T was the shot today to take the victory, the chaser for us was Karthik Pai and Ove Trangarade, as they wound up giving us some incredible excitement after our leader had won the race. Topi Korteniemi, though, was the one that was in that tense battle through much of the race for the lead with Andy T, but didn't have pace at the end. And Gernot Friesche wound up third on the podium, finding himself unable to keep up with either of them, a massive 15 seconds behind. Pep Meyer was in fourth, and then you've got Yanni Ryan, and a bit of a quiet top 5 here today. We didn't really cover him all that much. Same thing with Timothy Reed, who had a bit of a scare early in the race, but then wound up getting his 6th. Karthik Pai, as I mentioned, coming together, unfortunately, with Kevin Honorato out of the chase. We'll see if that caused any bad blood between them, finishing 7th because of it, and Trangarade inheriting 2 positions as he also had contact with Josh Germany and going by Kevin Honorato in the process to get to 8th. Sanchez, a top 10, but still mysteriously unable to do much from the back of the pack, having failed his qualifying to set a time. He finished in 9th, and Josh Germany winds up, I guess, your last one to finish potentially here in 10th.
No, Pepe Fuentes finished in 11th place, 1 minute 5 seconds down. So, yeah, I think he classifies as a finisher. Might have been towed across the line, but hey, it still counts. Kevin Honorato finishing 12th, 1 lap down. Then it's Jack Jones, who was out in that pile-up on the first lap, but did a great job of hauling that Lotus 79 for 21 more laps, and then finishing 13th, 2 laps down. Then you got your list of retirements there on the screen. Fergalton, Gallis, Milward, Boku, Sanchez, and Daniel Downing as well. A lot of victims there, a lot of drama here, and a lot of excitement in what was certainly a pace setter of a race for this season. But Joe, I do believe you are ready to talk to the man of the hour.
He's 2 for 2 for this season. Andy T, congratulations on another victory. But I have to ask, you spent a lot of the race behind your teammate Topi. Was that genuine pace trying to catch him and you weren't sure if you could? Or how much of it was maybe just waiting for the race to come to you, knowing you had better pace at the end?
Yeah, so it was a bit of both. Like, Topi, fast, very fast boy. So yeah, that pace was genuine. I was pushing to try and stay with him. I knew that my set would come good at the end versus the start tire pressures. I even said to him halfway, like, I'm just waiting for your pressures to cost you here, buddy. And they did. Like, the last few sort of 10 laps, maybe, I think I had about 2 tenths per lap on him. And that was what I needed to get close. Yeah, I'm not sure why he defended when I wasn't trying to overtake him, but I'll take a free pass.
Well, we were just as surprised by that. I mean, going around the outside of the chase doesn't happen often, although it's not completely foreign. You sound just as surprised as we were. Have you had a chance to talk to him and ask what happened? Was that a mistake out of him or what?
Yeah, we talked about it. He said he'd been mugged a few times by people making late moves, and I'm the type to make a late move, so he covered me off. That's it, really. I mean, he had the pace to win that, really. Like, it's just, if I was going to pass him legitimately, it would have needed a mistake in the downhill section so that I could be on him for the straight as I had more top speed. But yeah, insane pace from him.
I'm not sure how you feel about him saying he knows you well enough that he doesn't trust you for that. But Topi winds up second for the second week in a row. However, we're going to a bit of a different one at Brands Hatch. If you get stuck behind him there, is that going to be a whole different ball game?
How am I going to get stuck behind him when I'm on vacation in Norway? Yeah, I'm gone. I'm gone for 3 weeks, guys. So yeah, he'll have a new winner next week.
Okay. Well, that will definitely change it, and we'll miss you. But obviously, I'm sure you'll be back later on to hop in when you please. Anybody you want to give a shout out to before you go?
You guys for the great broadcast. My teammates, as always. Alex Millward, funnily enough, the guy had great pace, and to see him go off lap one is a shame, and I know he's had some drama. The fan for watching, Hoopsy the worst, the usual, you know it, guys.
And that was Andy T, your winner. Up next, Topi Korteniemi, second here today at Australia, and Aussie has caught up to his fellow Finn.
Yes, I have. Topi Korteniemi, you had it, then you lost it. Kind of like Wayne Gretzky in 1996. So we heard the other side of the story already. That was Andy T telling about how he had higher tire pressures, and he was even telling you in the middle of the race how, he was waiting for them to cost you. So what was the reason you two went to different directions with your setups? You are teammates after all.
Yeah, I just played with more wing because if I went any less wing, I wasn't confident in the fast bits in the mountain sections, and if you're anxious there, you're not going to have a good time. So I knew Andy was running less wing than me, and I was thinking he was approaching me faster than he was, and I was playing to get the inside line to the last corner, but apparently he was faster through the chase, so yeah.
It was certainly a brave, ambitious move from Andy, who was, let's face it, he was faster to those last laps, but it was an ambitious move. Did he maybe catch you a little bit scared in that one, or I should say intimidated?
I don't know. I misjudged the situation. I think he was closer, and if I had thought that he was my teammate, I wouldn't have expected him to send it there. But if it was anyone else, that would be the proper move, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. As an old advert here in Finland said, next time ovi kiinni, osto lämmin. So how about next week in Brands Hatch with no Andy T? He's in Norway. Will you be racing and will you be chasing that first victory?
I'll try.
Nice to have this wonderfully long Finnish answers. Topi Korteniemi, thank you very much for the interview, and congratulations for this second place. I know it's not a win, but it's as close as you can get. If there's anyone you would like to thank you or send a shout out to either in English or Finnish, then feel free to do so.
Yeah, Andy for the setup stuff we discussed before, and for a good race.
And that's it for Topi Korteniemi. Thank you, Topi. And finally, we have Joe, who has caught up with Der Lottekamp-Fliegel, the Austrian Superman, and he is next up on the microphone.
Yep, Gernot Friesche joining us with a podium here today. A little bit better result than what we saw back in Austria there, Gernot. So, I mean, do you like this track a little bit better than the others? Because even the qualifying, I was a little bit surprised to see you up and fourth.
All right, Joe. Yeah, I was surprised as well because I had quite some more practice at Austria and did about 30 laps maybe here at Bathurst. But yeah, I have routine from the past, so that's the main difference. And I started using the forum setup, which helped me a lot. So thanks for that. Just did minor modifications, and it worked really well for me. This track is all about confidence, so you have to be pushing enough to have a good lap time. On the other hand, you have to be safe enough to keep it on the track. So I think I found a good compromise, and I'm happy with that.
That seemed to work out pretty well. Yeah, it's a third place with a forum setup, and I Gotta wonder then, because we heard from Andy T that he is going to have to be away for a holiday next week. In fact, 3 weeks, it sounds like, before he's returning. Do you feel like this gives you a chance to finally get back to the top step, or is Topi going to be too much to try and overtake when we head off to Brands Hatch?
That's a really hard question, because when you look at the grid and how this splits, it's just crazy. There's so many fast guys in this series, and it's really hard to get a podium. So I'll happily take that. And I'm not talking about winning, because I would have to invest a lot of time, a lot of practice, and a lot of setup work to get closer. The front runners that have been dominating the last couple of seasons are just crazy fast. So it's really hard. It takes quite an amount of luck, maybe, to go for a win. Basically, you need bad luck from others. So it's hard to predict. Maybe it happens, and it's much more likely that I won't be able to compete for a win.
Well, obviously, you still have the stats to back up your reputation regardless, and they can't take that away from you. Anybody you want to give a shout out to before we let you go?
As usually, you guys. Thanks for doing the great broadcasts all the time. It's really fun to watch. And thanks to the other guys. Huge respect to the whole grid to make it to the finish. So there haven't been so many guys crashing out, which is quite a wonder here on this track, and especially during first lap, it's really important that the front guys keep it clean, because you can take out the whole field here. So congrats to everyone, and thank you guys. A nice holiday to Andy.
As Gunnar Frisha taking a podium here today, and still as gracious and humble as ever about the skills that he has. But we're going to wrap it up with a big thank you, of course, to the Lotus 79 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage here. And also a thank you to the team today, Ozzy, Ryan, and Dougie. Make sure and check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC, because the next race is going to be at Brands Hatch, as we mentioned. That'll be Sunday, July 3rd at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Also, be sure to check out our other broadcasts listed here, including, in just a few minutes' time, the Majors World 600 at Charlotte is kicking off at noon Eastern. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.